For more than 1,000 years, the mighty Ragnar clan acted as the Empire's northern shield. This was all thanks to their unique physical traits, which rumors claimed were passed down from dragons. Every clan member was born with outstanding magical strength, stamina, and natural sword talent, except Theo, the protagonist of our story. Because he lacked talent and ability, he was labeled a disgrace and treated like garbage by everyone, even his sword instructor. One day when the family estate came under attack, he was critically wounded when he finally realized who was behind it. It was Randon. His own master had betrayed him. Randon laughed and said he had watched Theo train every morning. All that effort, all that suffering had been meaningless. No matter how hard Theo worked, he would never amount to anything. Randon swung his sword and severed Theo's arm. Blood spilled everywhere as Theo collapsed, screaming in agony. Randon grabbed him by the head and lifted him up, saying that everything happening was Theo's fault. He forced him to watch Rose Palace burning and told him his family was dying because he was weak. Then someone dragged over his mother's lifeless body and dropped it before him. Randon coldly stated that her death was also his responsibility. Despite being broken, Theo still tried to fight back. Before he could reach Randon, another man hurled a sword straight through Theo's body. He was sent flying and slammed into the ground. Randon casually apologized, saying he got carried away reminiscing about the past. As Theo lay there, his vision began to fade. He regretted his weakness, and then everything went dark. He regressed back in time, awakening hidden traits and skills. Theo opened his eyes again, and standing right in front of him was that bastard Randon once more. It looked like they were in the middle of sword training. Randon tried to snap him out of his daze for spacing out. Theo had no idea what was happening. He wondered if this was some kind of flashback and couldn't believe the face he saw was Randon's irritating one. It felt like a cruel joke played by fate. Suddenly, a system window appeared in front of him, leaving him completely confused. The system instructed him to punch Randon in the face as part of a tutorial quest. Theo was more bewildered than ever and wondered if flashbacks were supposed to work like this. He also noticed that Randon couldn't see the system window. Not that Theo minded. He dropped his training stick, clenched his fist, and with all his strength, delivered a solid punch straight into Randon's face. When the punch landed, Randon's expression didn't change at all. He had no idea what Theo was trying to do. Meanwhile, Theo smirked, thinking about how real everything felt. Randon finally reacted in anger and struck Theo hard, sending him flying backward. Theo was annoyed that he still had to feel pain, even in a flashback. Randon sighed and explained that he understood Theo's frustration, especially with the awakening ceremony approaching and Theo showing no improvement. However, he said he couldn't tolerate a student attacking their master. The mention of the awakening ceremony shocked Theo. That event had taken place nearly 10 years before his death. Randon continued scolding him and walked away, saying he'd see him at the next lesson. Other clan members laughed among themselves, mocking Theo and calling him talentless for blaming his master. As the insults continued, Theo finally realized what was happening. He scratched the ground and felt it clearly beneath his fingers. Then he looked at the injury Randon had given him, and the realistic pain hit him hard. It became clear this wasn't just a flashback. He had truly returned 10 years into the past, back to when he was 17. Right on cue, a system window appeared, congratulating him on completing the tutorial quest. As a reward, Ragnar's talent was activated. The system asked if he wanted to accept the reward, and without hesitation, he chose yes. Arcane energy shimmered at the center of his chest as the system confirmed the reward, stating that all his stats would now increase at an incredible rate. Back at Rose Palace, the same filthy bastard was having tea with Theo's mother. He told her he had never seen anyone as untalented as her son. Then he smiled broadly and said that was exactly why he was there. The true instructor, Randon, would do his best to make Theo strong enough for the awakening ceremony in 5 months. Cecilia Ragnar, the lady of Rose Palace, said she would leave everything in Randon's capable hands. She handed him a pouch filled with gold coins and told him to pay Theo more attention. The bastard accepted the money and reassured her not to worry. She replied that she wasn't worried at all because she believed in Theo. Later, Randon walked down the corridor holding the bag of gold, grinning. He was delighted to be paid such a generous amount to teach Theo absolutely nothing. He mocked both mother and son in his thoughts. Not only was he earning money for training someone from the Ragnar bloodline, but he would also be rewarded by his other master for leaking Theo's secrets and sabotaging his growth. It was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. Elsewhere, Theo sprinted through the corridor at full speed, passing Randon in an instant. His so-called master scoffed and called him a pathetic loser. Theo was running to see his mother. When he reached her, he called out. She turned around to see him gasping for air. Without saying a word, Theo hugged her tightly and began to cry, overwhelmed by the fact that she was alive. That moment finally convinced him that he had truly returned 10 years into the past. The painful memory of being forced to watch her dead body flashed through his mind. Now, seeing her alive filled him with genuine happiness. He swore to change the future for her sake. If the mysterious system was real, then with Ragnar's talent, he could grow stronger. He believed he would be powerful enough to survive the coming war for the throne. Most importantly, he vowed to get strong enough to take revenge on that piece of trash, Randon. The second tutorial quest appeared, instructing Theo to train his body to the limit. It was still early morning before sunrise, yet Theo was already working hard, driven by thoughts of revenge. He knew he needed strength as quickly as possible. In his previous life, Theo belonged to an intelligence organization called Blackbird. However, he was stuck handling information and never assigned major roles due to his lack of combat ability. He never imagined he would use that knowledge like this. One thing he remembered was a powerful potion called the Bloody Sword Emperor Elixir, which greatly enhanced the body. Its true value would be revealed later through secret manuals. He also recalled the brutal training he had abandoned because he lacked talent. But now, with Ragnar's talent, he was confident effort would bring results. His face twisted with joy when he noticed his running speed increasing, and the system window immediately displayed his progress. Other clan members entered the training hall and were shocked to see him running without tiring. They wondered if he had always been this fit. Later, he practiced sword swings and clearly noticed his speed had improved. A few days later, he trained late into the night. That's when the training ground manager, Evelyn Nerville, appeared, yawning from exhaustion. She thought about how Theo had been training nonstop for days and questioned whether he was really the talentless fool people claimed. Theo himself was so exhausted he felt like collapsing, but watching the progress bar climb higher kept him motivated. Just the previous night, he had reached 90%, only for it to drop to 89% when he rested briefly. That was why he continued training without pause, ignoring limits. Now at 98%, he pushed even harder, knowing he was close. After one final burst, he was barely breathing, with only 1% remaining. Somehow, he forced himself onward, and finally, his efforts paid off as the long-awaited 3-digit number appeared. The system congratulated him for completing the tutorial quest and informed him that he had obtained the Dragon Heart as a reward. Before he could read the details, he collapsed from exhaustion as the system hovered above him, asking if he wished to receive the reward. His trembling hand lifted, and he pressed yes. A blue light engulfed him instantly, and the hall manager stared in disbelief as he underwent the transformation. Later, Theo woke up in a room. As he opened his eyes, Evelyn appeared and told him he was in the break room of Training Ground 4. She said there was no need to push himself that hard. Theo recognized her immediately, surprising her. She introduced herself as the manager of the 4th Training Ground and explained that he had collapsed while training alone earlier that morning, so she brought him here to rest. Theo thanked her, and she offered him water while reminding him that opening one's mana hall before the awakening ceremony was strictly forbidden in the Ragnar clan. Theo didn't understand why she mentioned it, but agreed that he knew the rule. She then asked if he knew why he broke it. Confused, Theo questioned her. She reminded him that when he lost consciousness, a mana wave identical to the opening of a mana hall was released. With a serious expression, she demanded to know if he had opened his mana hall. Theo had no idea what she was talking about. Then he remembered what happened before he passed out. He had received the Dragon Heart as a reward, and as a bonus for clearing the quest early, he gained the magic power of 10 of his past lives. Realizing this, he was left completely speechless, knowing how rare it was to obtain a Dragon Heart. A Dragon Heart is unique because it can house a mana hall. Installing a mana hall inside it allows mana to circulate with far greater efficiency. Humans, however, differ from dragons. Instead of placing their mana halls in the heart, humans usually form them in the lower abdomen, since a human heart cannot withstand such immense energy. This is exactly why warriors, especially those of the Ragnar clan, desperately desire a dragon heart. It is the fastest way to gain overwhelming power without embedding the mana hall in the abdomen. Now, Theo has received a dragon heart as a quest reward, placing him in a rather uncomfortable position. To make matters worse, he is sitting in front of Evelyn Neville, a retired high-ranking swordswoman who lost her left arm and now oversees the training grounds. Evelyn once served as the commander of the White Armored Dragon Cavalry, and her abilities were so exceptional that even the Demon Dragon held her in respect. She was known for her uncompromising values and never cared about rank or raw power. Deceit and cowardice were things she absolutely could not stand. When she once deemed him too rigid, she even stepped down from being his direct instructor. In short, if she were to uncover the truth about his dragon heart in Manhwa, Theo could very well be executed. Still, he smiles because he already has a strategy. As long as he isn't exposed, there is nothing to fear. He sharply retorts to her accusations, asking how she could talk about executing him based solely on intuition. Evelyn falls silent, unable to refute him. Theo presses further, reminding her that he is also an heir of the Ragnar clan. If unfounded suspicions against him were proven false, it would amount to tarnishing the Ragnar name, she concedes, admitting that those are indeed the rules. With a chilling expression, Theo asks if she knows the punishment for disgracing an heir. Without hesitation, she answers that the sentence is execution. Satisfied that she understands, he tells her to choose her words carefully. Evelyn is stunned by this unfamiliar side of him and wonders if this is truly the same person she once knew. Regardless, she remains convinced that what she sensed earlier was undeniably a mana wave. Determined to follow protocol, she resolves to investigate further, even if he carries Ragnar blood. Rules are absolute, and she intends to enforce them. Soon after, she discovers that Theo does not actually possess a visible Manhwa. Her expression collapses as she realizes she may have been mistaken. Theo, feeling smug, asks if that answers her concerns. According to protocol, she kneels at his feet and, without hesitation, tells him to carry out her execution, stating that she will atone for her mistake with her insignificant life. As she lowers her head further, Theo explains that dragon hearts differ from ordinary Manhwas. A dragon heart functions as a Manhwa that can be freely controlled by its owner. Rather than killing her, he gently places a hand on her back and tells her it is unnecessary. As he walks away, he says she simply did her duty and that few people would risk their lives to seek the truth from an heir. He respects her integrity. In reality, Theo spares her because she is among the strongest, and keeping her alive will benefit him in the future. He also explains that the restriction against opening mana halls before the awakening ceremony exists to prevent mana overflow. With that, he leaves her sitting there in silence. Theo walks away confidently, feeling invincible, recalling that in addition to the dragon heart, he also inherited 10 years' worth of magical power from his previous life. A few days later, we encounter that same bastard again, shouting at Theo to swing slightly more to the right. Theo continues pretending to be weak, though enduring Randon's constant insults is becoming unbearable. He notices that this bastard is subtly yet deliberately teaching him bizarre sword techniques. Theo grows increasingly certain that there is someone manipulating Randon, and he is convinced that the person who dealt the final blow in his previous life is the true mastermind. Realizing it's time to act, a sly smile appears on his face as he figures out his next move. Randon keeps yelling, until Theo suddenly snaps the wooden stick in his hands. He tells the old fool that he can no longer tolerate his nonstop yapping because his instruction is absolute garbage. He then questions how someone with such worthless skills even reached mid-rank swordsman status. To provoke him further, Theo remarks that he would likely struggle even against demonic beasts. Predictably, Randon takes the bait and explodes with rage, but Theo refuses to back down. He steps toward the old man and reiterates how pathetic his abilities truly are. We soon learn that Theo's goal is to push Randon into resigning, and if things spiral out of control, Theo is certain this bastard will contact the person backing him. The scene shifts to Camellia Palace, where a man bursts into a tavern with a wide grin. He calls out to Axion and loudly announces that Ragnar's bastard will duel his master next week. Axion sits motionless, unable even to lift his glass. The excited man continues rambling, claiming Theo blamed his instructor for his lack of talent and boasting that Theo will end up crippled after the duel. Suddenly, the glass Axion was holding smashes into the loudmouth's face, knocking him unconscious instantly. Axion, visibly furious, declares that he doesn't care if some bastard ends up half-disabled. Of course he wouldn't. He is also a Ragnar, one of the four hounds of the north, Dark Tiger Axion Ragnar. Standing beside him is Remington Narcio, another of the four hounds, known as the Silver Lion. At that moment, another man enters. This anxious figure is Ed Trovan, the Nine-Dragon Sky Dragon. He warns that things could go wrong if they lower their guard. Axion dismisses the concern, saying that only talented individuals pose a threat, and Theo is nothing more than a clueless nobody. Ed counters that within the Ragnar clan, extraordinary outcomes can arise even from the smallest chance. Axion replies that Theo antagonizing Randon is actually beneficial, since the instructor should be more than capable of dealing with him. A week later, people gather at Training Ground 4. Not only clan members attend, many influential figures are present as well. In the arena, Theo stands nervously under the eyes of hundreds of spectators. He curses himself, remembering that he only wanted to get that bastard fired after being humiliated, but everything has escalated beyond expectations. Still, he isn't overly concerned. This outcome was anticipated, and he is eager to take revenge on Randon. A system notification confirms that his third tutorial quest is to fight Randon and win. We flash back to the moment Theo confronted Randon about his worthless skills, telling him he was fired and should leave. Randon protested, arguing that the contract was still valid, but Theo replied that being dismissed by the employer ended all discussion. Theo wanted nothing more than to punch him, but doubted his current strength. Meanwhile, Randon couldn't afford to be fired, as he hadn't completed his objective yet. As he approached Theo to persuade him, a system window appeared, ordering Theo to fight and defeat Randon. This caught him completely off guard. At the same time, Evelyn Neville arrived and urged Theo to settle the matter the Ragnar way, the law of the strong. A sword duel would resolve everything without the need for a tribunal, and the victor's will would stand. Seizing the opportunity, the old bastard eagerly agreed. Theo was left uncertain, while Evelyn continued insisting it was the best solution. Though hesitant, Theo eventually found himself facing Randon. The crowd exchanged mocking looks, whispering about how pitiful Theo was. They said he didn't even know how to wield a sword and would surely be crippled by a mid-rank swordsman. Randon smugly told Theo that if he apologized now, he would let everything slide, as pride wasn't worth risking his life. Theo shot back with sharp sarcasm, saying Randon should be the one apologizing. He warned him that if he didn't want to lose an arm, he should accept his dismissal and leave quietly. Randon merely grinned, confident that the fight was already decided. He planned to exploit the duel to kill Theo under the guise of an accident. Once the battle began, he offered Theo the first strike, acting like a gracious teacher. Theo charged forward with his sword raised, and the crowd gasped at the sight of him rushing in recklessly, seemingly clueless about proper technique. Randon unleashed several attacks, but Theo managed to defend himself. The old man continued his relentless assault, cornering Theo and concluding that this outcome was inevitable. After all, Theo wasn't even low-ranked. He was merely an apprentice. Even if his skills had slightly improved, it wouldn't be enough. He believed that unless Theo were on the level of the four hounds, there was no chance he could win. The scene shifts to days earlier, when Theo questioned Evelyn about proposing the duel. She said she was trying to help him, explaining that simply firing Randon wouldn't work since someone was backing him. She suspected this due to Randon's strange sword teachings and had someone secretly investigate him. Theo was shocked. In his past life, she never pursued this. Yet now she was going this far because the Manhwa incident sparked her interest. She revealed that every lead pointed back to Camellia Palace. This didn't surprise Theo, though it irritated him to realize it all stemmed from the wretched struggle for the throne. He calmed himself and admitted it was impressive she uncovered so much. He confessed that with his current ability, he wasn't sure he could defeat Randon. Evelyn assured him that he could and warned him not to underestimate himself. Back in the duel, Randon continues attacking, but Theo deflects every strike effortlessly. Randon is bewildered, realizing this isn't the Theo Ragnar he knew. The momentum has completely reversed, and now Randon is the one on the back foot. The crowd senses impending defeat. We also catch sight of a hooded figure, possibly Remington, looking utterly shaken. Evelyn, meanwhile, watches with clear delight, feeling inexplicably proud. The story shifts again, revealing that during the past week, Evelyn personally trained Theo. Though it technically violated the rules, she felt Randon didn't deserve to be called a teacher. This revelation brings a grin to Theo's face, filling him with excitement and exhilaration. He feels that indebting Evelyn was absolutely worth it. Still, one question lingers. He asks why she went so far to help him. She admits it partly relates to the previous incident, but also mentions someone she knows who obsessively seeks out talent. Back in the present, the fight intensifies as Randon grows desperate. He wonders if Theo had been feigning incompetence all along. In the middle of the clash, Theo asks who is backing him. Randon snaps back in confusion, but Theo presses on, stating he knows the lessons were intentionally flawed. He bluntly asks if Randon is working with Camellia Palace. The old man freezes, and his reaction confirms Theo's suspicion. In the next instant, Theo swings his sword, severing Randon's hand. The severed limb flies through the air, stunning the audience. The false instructor screams in agony, cursing as blood pours out. Theo advances confidently, finally feeling his growth. He throws Randon's past words back at him, saying it was his own weakness and lack of talent that led to this end. With a threatening swing, Theo declares that Randon is the weakest one here, and under Ragnar's rule of strength, with one final strike, the blade falls, and the bastard's head rolls across the ground as blood splatters everywhere. A system window appears immediately, congratulating Theo for clearing Tutorial Quest 3. Not only did he succeed, but he exceeded the objective and earned a bonus reward. The system asks whether he wishes to claim it now, and we already know his answer.
Watching an apprentice swordsman brutally take down a mid-rank swordsman like that is almost unbelievable. At the same time, our protagonist feels as if the old geezer was absurdly frail. He's actually ashamed that someone like that caused him so much suffering in his previous life. The system then announces that the skill known as observation has been unlocked as a reward. On top of that, he also receives an extra year's worth of magical power. Suddenly, a man drops from the sky, crashing into the ground with the force of a meteor. The man loudly calls out his name, with a massive grin on his face. This individual is none other than Julius Ragnar, the demon dragon himself and the commander of the White Armored Dragon Cavalry. Theo is completely shocked at the sight of him. He can't believe that it's truly Julius. The crowd erupts into chaos, because the man standing before them is the commander of the White Armored Dragon Cavalry. Everyone is panicking, unable to understand why someone of such a high position would even appear here. We then see Evelyn herself looking utterly crushed and miserable after the commander shattered the floor upon landing. On the other hand, Julius gives off the presence of a true monster, and his overwhelming appearance makes Theo sweat as he struggles. Julius suddenly bursts into laughter, flashing an enormous grin. He resembles a friendlier version of Brutus from Popeye the Sailor Man. He pats Theo on the back, though his idea of a gentle pat is anything but gentle. Laughing loudly, he says he's amazed that someone could carry such an incredible amount of talent. He adds that killing one's teacher was somewhat disrespectful, but openly admits that Randon had it coming. He then laughs again, slaps Theo on the shoulder, and straightforwardly invites him to join the White Armored Dragon Cavalry. Evelyn had already anticipated this outcome, while the spectators stand there completely dumbfounded. They can't comprehend how the infamous Julius Ragnar would recruit someone as inexperienced as an apprentice swordsman into the elite White Armored Knights. We then catch sight of Remington once more. He asks a nearby man whether he's ever heard of an apprentice swordsman, one who hasn't even gone through the awakening ceremony, being scouted. The man hesitates before admitting he's never heard of such a thing. Remington already knows this as well. In the entire history of their world, it has never happened. Meanwhile, we hear Theo's internal thoughts. He believes it's impossible to truly assess someone's potential while their mana hall remains sealed. Even if their swordsmanship is outstanding, their magical reserves could be pitiful. So regardless of Julius Ragnar's stature, he shouldn't be able to fully determine whether Theo has real potential. Without hesitation, Theo directly refuses the invitation, his expression calm and unwavering. Julius freezes, looking as though he just tasted something sour. The crowd is equally stunned, their mouths hanging open at how bluntly Theo rejected such an influential figure. A heavy silence falls over the hall as everyone struggles to digest what they've just witnessed. As the day goes on, news of the event spreads rapidly throughout the clan. Everyone is discussing how the so-called imbecile young Master Theo killed his own instructor, and when the demon dragon attempted to recruit him into the White Armored Dragon Cavalry, he rejected the offer outright. Opinions are split. Some believe he's humble, while others think he's unbearably arrogant. The scene then shifts to Camellia Palace, where a woman sits seething with anger over Randon's death, and how everything has spiraled out of control. She is none other than Amile Ragnar, the lady of Camellia Palace. A man steps forward to reassure her, reminding her that Randon was weak and only assigned due to his incompetence. She brushes it aside, stating that his death isn't a real issue. The man speaking with her is her brother, the sky dragon Ed Troven, whom we previously saw at the tavern. She explains that the demon dragon personally approached Theo. And even worse, rumors claim that Evelyn sanctioned it. This means they can no longer interfere by assigning Theo a new instructor. If Theo begins to draw attention, seizing control of the Rose Palace will become significantly more difficult. At that moment, Ashin casually walks in, asking why they're so anxious. He assures them that the clan head won't pay attention to this matter and that their plan can proceed without changes. Amile asks whether he understands that the safest way to take control of the Rose Palace, without angering the clan leader, is for Theo to remain weak. Her son confirms that he understands and confidently states that Theo is still powerless. After all, how much could someone like him have changed? He believes Evelyn and the demon dragon have always favored underdogs, so there's no need to overreact. Ed Troven, however, isn't pleased with Ashin's careless attitude and warns him not to underestimate the situation. Ashin then pulls out a letter and smirks, saying that since they're so concerned, he'll personally remind Theo of his place. The scene later shifts to the training grounds, where Evelyn praises Theo for his productive training session. He thanks her sincerely, remarking that learning under a real master feels completely different. She then comments that it might have been better if he had accepted the invitation to the White Armor Dragon Cavalry, and asks why he declined. Theo pauses before answering. He admits internally that it would be dishonest to say he felt no regret, since joining had been his lifelong dream in his previous life. Still, he smirks, realizing that joining now would only limit his future. There's no reason to restrict himself so early. When he considers the authority and privileges he could gain after the awakening ceremony, the White Armored Dragon Cavalry pales in comparison. So he simply smiles and replies that he didn't want any special treatment and doesn't feel ready yet. He's content training under her guidance until the awakening ceremony. Evelyn reminds him that the commander will likely feel disappointed by his rejection. At that moment, Theo activates his observation skill for the first time. He examines her stats and confirms that she's undoubtedly a high-ranking swordswoman. He sees that she respects his humility and personality, and that teaching him has given her a renewed sense of purpose, something she hasn't felt in a long time. He also notices that she misses the White Armored Dragon Cavalry. He squints slightly when he reads the line about her longing for the cavalry, finding it unexpected. Just then, a man approaches and introduces himself as Sybil Dree. He explains that he's from the Southern Inspection Post and has something important to discuss with Theo. Theo finds his presence intimidating and has no idea what the conversation will involve. He activates observation again and discovers that Sybil harbors a strong desire to spar with him. The revelation makes Theo sweat, as the thought of fighting someone with such a frightening face fills him with anxiety. Right on cue, the system notification appears, displaying the 4th tutorial quest. His objective is to shed the title of Ragnar's Imbecile, and he has already made nearly 28% progress. Sybil speaks openly, declaring that he wishes to follow young Master Theo. He honestly admits that he was once among those who ignored the supposedly talentless Ragnar, believing the title of imbecile fit perfectly. Theo appreciates the honesty, though he can't help feeling irritated. The man was practically insulting him without realizing it. Sybil explains that his perspective changed once he learned that Theo trained every morning harder than anyone else. He was also honored to witness the results of that dedication during the battle against the fraud. Rinwan Harvey Sybil was ecstatic when he saw the instructor's head fly through the air. Witnessing Theo's rapid growth firsthand left him in awe. The moment Julius Ragnar personally invited Theo to join the White Armor Dragon Cavalry became permanently etched in his memory. From that point on, Sybil declared Theo his idol. He had once considered giving up after being labeled the idiot of the Southern Inspection Office, but Theo's appearance changed everything. All he wanted now was the chance to cross swords with his hero. The young man's sincerity was startling. Normally, Theo would question someone's motives, but observation revealed Sybil's genuine nature. His respect was real, and all he sought was a spar. Though unexpected, Theo felt pleased. After defeating Randon and gaining Julius's attention, Theo assumed people driven by insecurity would rush to challenge him. He never expected to encounter individuals who admired him and wished to follow him willingly. This meant that Ragnar's pride still flowed through some people's veins. This worked perfectly for Theo, as he needed trustworthy individuals around him. If he intended to become the Ragnar Clan head, capable subordinates were essential. Moreover, this situation could help him advance his final tutorial quest to erase the imbecile title, a label he could never escape in his previous life. With the opportunities granted by the system, he resolved to discard that humiliating name entirely. Theo asked Evelyn for permission to spar, and she readily agreed, urging him to demonstrate his skills. Raising his sword in salute, he formally introduced himself as Theo Ragnar, apprentice swordsman of the Rose Palace, awaiting the awakening ceremony under Master Evelyn Naravevel. The one-armed sword master smiled approvingly. Sybil awkwardly returned the salute, introducing himself as an apprentice swordsman from a southern inspection post. He inherited the Ragnar Clan swordsmanship and specialized in quicksword techniques. The spar began immediately, with Sybil launching himself forward aggressively. He attacked like a madman, aiming to overwhelm from the start. Theo blocked the initial strike, sparks flying as their blades collided. The so-called idiot of the southern inspection post was undeniably fast. Speed was his greatest confidence. From just that first exchange, Sybil realized the young master's skill was genuine. Meanwhile, Theo wondered why someone like this had ever been called an idiot. In his previous life, facing such an opponent would have been a struggle, but he had grown far beyond that version of himself. Theo counterattacked, sending Sybil flying like a rag doll and knocking the sword from his grasp. For Theo now, this was effortless. Sybil nearly vomited from the brutal blow to his solar plexus and slammed into the arena stands. Thankfully, his injuries weren't severe. He struggled to stand and praised Theo's swordsmanship, conceding the match with gratitude. Theo remained composed, saluting him and commending the fight. As he held his blade in salute, he noticed his reflection and had a thought. Perhaps he could use observation on himself. Activating it, he confirmed it worked. His talents included observation, player, Ragnar, and several others beyond his current access. He was a level 1 swordsman with balanced stats and an unusually high 190 magic power. Now that he could perceive stat values, everything appeared numerically. His talents were clearly displayed, and based on the lock slots, completing quests would unlock at least 4 more. Being able to check his own stats freely was an invaluable discovery. Theo attributed his massive magic power to his previous life's magic and the dragon heart within his chest. What bothered him was his negative 49 luck stat. He wondered if he was cursed, and if all the misfortune he endured before stemmed from this abysmal luck. Increasing it quickly became a priority. Theo failed to notice the growing circle of young men surrounding the arena. Though Randon was weak, he was still a mid-rank swordsman. After Theo beheaded him and gained approval from a powerful commander, attention was inevitable. Under Ragnar's law of strength, people would either envy him or revere him. The gathered swordsmen clearly belonged to the latter. They saw that the rumors were true. Respect shone in their eyes as each imagined facing Theo themselves, wondering if they could even block a single strike. Their desire to spar with him only grew. Among them was Ayad Nalin. Theo scanned the crowd and felt satisfied. He called Nalin forward, surprising the young man. Eodi saluted firmly and introduced himself as the third son of Viscount Nalin, specializing in double ascension swordsmanship. Theo returned the salute and wished him a good match. Without further ceremony, they engaged. With every clash, Theo's basic swordsmanship improved. Eodi was skilled, fast and clever enough to land a seemingly unavoidable slash. Time seemed to slow for Theo. He adjusted his grip and executed a perfectly angled block, sending Eodi's sword flying. The maneuver boosted his proficiency in changing hard swordsmanship. Eodi stood defeated and acknowledged his loss, pledging his respect. To Theo's surprise, earning Eodi's approval raised his luck stat. Perhaps luck was tied to reputation. If so, he had found a way to fix it. Keep fighting until luck turned in his favor. Burnett Romero was next and went down easily, granting another point of luck. Theo continued his streak against Daniel Reman, completely absorbed in battle. After defeating most challengers, he craved more, yet no one stepped forward. Exhausted, he checked his quest progress. Only 1% gained. Maybe he needed stronger opponents or to prove himself before those who still doubted him. Suddenly, a man stepped through the crowd, commenting on Theo's fatigue. Theo replied that he could still fight. Taking him at his word, the armored silver lion, Remington Narcio, formally requested a spar. The crowd was stunned. Remington was one of the 4 hounds of the North, alongside Hulkus Lanka, Ray Ragnar, and Ashin Ragnar, recognized as the strongest of their generation awaiting awakening. Remington explained he came early to observe Theo's swordsmanship. Saluting with a smile, he thanked Theo for accepting. A sword prodigy with sharp instincts and tireless dedication, Remington was intrigued by the emergence of this unexpected rival. Theo returned the salute proudly, introducing himself as the 31st son of Kyle Ragnar, Guardian of the North. He admitted he never expected to meet, let alone spar with, the famed Remington Narcio, someone he deeply respected in his past life. Filled with excitement, Theo was eager to show his strength. Remington released an overwhelming aura, making Theo question whether he could truly win. They charged, blades crashing as sparks erupted. Just how powerful was one of the four hounds of the north? Each collision shook the arena violently. Theo kept his steady focus on the ultimate objective. Remington grinned as he matched that same calm composure. One of the many duelist's blades was snapped perfectly after enduring a significant amount of heavy wear and tear. Evelyn did not permit her sharp vision to drift as she observed the events very closely. The young warriors who were bested by the hands of Theo stood entirely silent. The clattering sound of the fractured steel hitting the floor echoed loudly. It belonged to Theo. In a solitary burst of pure physical force, Remington severed his weapon cleanly, halting his strike mere inches from taking Theo's life. To everyone witnessing the event in the stands, the conclusion was certain. Young Master Theo failed. Sybil declined to accept that his hero would be defeated so swiftly by any opponent. They accepted the harsh reality that regardless of how much Theo had improved recently, it remained impossible for him to topple one of the four hounds at this moment. They were the premier fighters of the current age, for a very good reason. He respectfully honored Theo in front of the crowd. His posture was perfect as he modestly thanked the young master for the contest. Remington maintained that Theo's blade was already damaged by the time they commenced the fight. Theo argued that on a field of war, nobody would grant such mercies to an enemy, so he already embraced his loss the second he lost his steel. Remington replied with a knowing smirk. The white lion and the fool gripped hands firmly. A deeper admiration for each other grew between the strange pair. Remington truly desired that they could have a real match in a better environment later, and Theo did too. Everyone looked on in awe as Theo was recognized by one of the four hounds, believing that the young lord truly was built different. The fight with Remington pushed his mission advancement up to 35%, a huge leap, all things considered. Evelyn breathed a long sigh of comfort from the edge of the grounds. Theo finally possessed a measure of just how powerful the hounds were because of Remington's show of strength. By gaining gifts and hidden guides through missions, Theo had turned significantly more capable than he was in the past. He was prompted to remember that he is still mostly deficient in many areas of his training. It was a pity that the match ended prematurely due to his current state, but he still learned much from the short clash. His fortune rose by 10, and his name has vastly grown among the people. As for the mission, he is still a long way from finishing it instantly, so he might need to actively seek other paths to victory. Remington admitted that he did not travel to this spot for a simple match. He actually desired to deliver a vital message to Theo personally. It was a formal bid to join the so-called Scale Dragon Society. Just hearing the title of the Scale Dragon Society caused all the young warriors' blood to spike with excitement. It is an elite circle with a grueling entry process for anyone. Furthermore, Remington himself was inviting the young master to be requested by the Scale Dragon Society. Theo humbly questioned if it would truly be fine for him to be joined to the group so soon. The White Lion quickly promised him that he was more than fit for the spot. Besides, he noted that it was not that grave of a circle in the first place. Most of the lead members merely see it as a social club for equals awaiting the coming power ceremony. Theo cannot tell if Remington had hidden goals for this bid, but he understands that the Scale Dragon Society is currently focused around his sibling, Axion. It is a meeting packed with vipers who view him with hate and mockery. That also made it the ideal setting for Theo to advance in his mission. In addition, it would permit him to do some scouting on Axion and the Camellia Palace. Finding no cause to decline, Theo accepted the parchment of invitation and formally thanked Remington for the effort. He pledged to join and enter the lair of his rivals. Remington cheerfully shook his palm, happy to have gathered another rising talent. He also told Theo to never pause to ask him about anything at all. The gathering will be in 2 weeks. Evelyn took a pull of her smoke, seemingly anxious about her new pupil. Moments later, the report of Theo getting asked to the elite social meeting reached the Rose Palace. Theo's mother, Cecilia, entered his chamber with a thrilled beam fixed on her face. He was just about to personally hand over the news, but that does not feel required anymore. Cecilia had already brought the palace's styling staff to his room, since he had been asked to join something vital for the first time. His mother was naturally joyful for him. It was a group including Ashian, the child of that sharp Amal, and gifted stars like Remington. The youths even draw notice from the High Council itself. Cecilia realized that everything from how Theo garments himself. She pulled out a string ruler and began taking Theo's measurements. Cecilia understands that her boy would show no error when it pertains to manners, but clothing and conduct are different things entirely. Luckily, this was an area of high society that Cecilia could personally assist him with. She used to be a famed performer after all. Theo understands that his mother had always felt the burden of having an illegal son as a lowly partner. Cecilia felt the shame of giving her child such a disgraceful name, even though that was not her mistake at all. In the freezing Ragnar house, where power beats everything, he could only think how painful it must have been for her to have such a frail child in the previous life. Cecilia might be acting happy and bright, but deep down, she was apparently worried about her son's safety and nothing else. She gripped Theo closely and promised him that his mother would always trust in him, that he will be able to achieve anything. The heat of his mother's hug softened the chill in Theo's soul. He gave back the hug and held his mother with devotion. This time, he is set to labor hard to stop making his mother fret about him. While she was thrilled at the thought of her child joining the Scale Dragon Society, 2 weeks later, the evening of the society feast arrived. Remington personally came by the Rose Palace to collect Theo in a grand coach. As soon as he saw the young man, he thought he was viewing a different individual. Theo had dropped his workout clothes and gained some fine attire thanks to his mother and the palace workers. Instead of a soldier, he appeared more like a noble. Remington noted on his new style, and Theo took it as a joke. Theo had to grant that his frame had suffered a huge renovation. He grew taller. His frames grew perfectly. And all of this was a consequence of a mere 2 weeks of steady practice. During those 2 weeks, Remington surprisingly came to visit him to practice together daily, and they had become quite close now. He also earned a decent group of fans with Sybil and the others. Evelyn was burdened with coaching a whole group of Theo followers when she only settled on teaching the young master for a short time. It was a busy 2 weeks of practice, to say the least. Even now, Theo was still mending from talking with so many eager people. Today he is going to his first formal party. Remington promised him that there was no need to be worried, but the White Lion left him with a solitary caution. He explained that his peer Axion can be very playful at times. It was actually Axion who sent the bid to Theo, saying he desired to meet the new rising talent. Getting all this data certainly alters things. Not for the worse, mind you. This was actually superior for Theo. He is already expecting to be greatly mocked everywhere. At the party hall, the Dark Tiger, Axion Ragnar, had already begun drinking expensive liquor. He was quite thrilled to turn the fool of Ragnar into his new toy. The coach stopped in front of a grand palace, marking their arrival at the party spot. Remington and Theo exited the carriage. The young lord quickly checked the area. He is about to enter the Camellia Palace, the base of the trash, who pushed Rain Dunn to mess with his path. In the previous life, they broke him, his mother, and the whole of the Rose Palace without pity. His ideas of revenge were broken by Remington's call to enter. The happy Remington had gained word that Axion would personally come and meet them, and he should be staying at the door by now. It was clear why that jerk Axion invited him in the first place. The idiot must be thinking that since the fool of Ragnar is making moves, it is up to him to halt Theos' drive. But the young master did not willingly walk inside the snake nest without a plan either. He will make Axion see just who he is trying to trick. As they got near to the palace, Theo halted in his path as soon as he saw something in the edge of his vision. Up on the top level of Camellia Palace, the strange blue glow of a system mission called to him. He was briefly lost by a potential mission inside the palace, so he did not see something quickly falling on his spot. Remington tried to protect him from the unknown object, but it had already burst with white cloud before he could get near. Remington felt fear and quickly shouted for Theo. Luckily, he was okay. It was just a bag of white powder pointed at him and thrown from up high. Remington was angry at the childish joke. Theo noted that he would not have been able to move, and the clothes his mother carefully crafted would have been damaged if this was his former life. He thought Remington was part of the act, but that does not seem to be the truth. Greeting him with powder must be the top those idiots up there could conceive of. A known voice moved the nobles out of the way and claimed that this was just a small hello between friends, a simple kindness. Remington was not accepting any of it, though. Axion finally revealed his proud face as he claimed that he was just giving a fun hello to his sibling Theo. Our boy quickly used his viewing powers to check the Dark Tiger. His gifts included rage, madness, and massive blade potential. He is currently waiting at having found a new toy to use. Theo grinned and said, "Thanks," puzzling his crazy sibling. He added that with how kind Axion was to him, he was naturally thankful, and he was very much looking forward to the event today. Axion's doubt quickly turned to joy. This sibling of his had really become interesting. Finally, Remington and Theo joined the feast hall, where every member of the gifted noble group was gathered. It was an extremely closed event, so only a chosen few were asked to drink, eat, and talk with their fellow gifted peers. Everyone was centered on today's unique guest. They cannot see why Axion would bid a loser. Even if Theo is also from a main line of the Ragnar blood, he is still widely called the Fool. Having such garbage in the Scaled Dragon Society was a bad shock for most. They had to grant that the style was sharp, though. Most nobles were aware of the fact that Axion was just messing with his new toy. Seeing as the low nobles did not even care to lower their voices, Remington told sorry to Theo, saying that these meetings are not usually this messy. Theo was just letting them speak garbage about him as much as they desired. He saw that the spot of the blue mission glow was close. He was fairly sure that it could be vital, but he does not have a simple way to get to it yet. Axion, the leader of the event, came down the stairs to ask his sibling if he was liking the event. Theo forced himself to be still and just proceed with his strategy as he drew it out. He grinned and thanked Axion for asking him again. Axion mockingly said sorry for the powder event a few minutes ago, jokingly saying that he went a bit too far. He closed the gap between himself and Theo in a flash, holding his sibling's shoulders hard as he moved Theo to take his apology in front of everyone. Remington wanted to step in, but Theo said that Axion had nothing to say sorry for. He kept to using Axion's words that the joke was just a greeting between kin. The madman was lost for words. Theo was just too still and steady to shake. He barked a laugh and hit Theo on the back as if he was a happy sibling. He never saw that the boy had heart. The noble saw the sight of Theo grinning, going along with his sibling's whim, calling him Axion's pet. They even spoke on Theos' low birth compared to the high blood of Trone. While it is true that they were half-siblings, the nobles think that Theo and Axion were on a totally different spot, even if they were both Ragnars. Troven House is the blade power of the East, while Theos' mother is just a random lady who came from nowhere. Theo grinned as he felt the clear slights that the nobles were throwing at him, letting it feed the fire inside. One thing the nobles were lost about was Remington's bond with the fool. They began giving the slights to Remington, calling him a low son of the Narcio house. The White Lion had been on edge since they got to the feast. Hearing these nobles bring up a banned subject almost made him snap on the spot. Theo thought that in just a few moments, Remington might just go and grab his moment. He was thinking of watching and hearing more slights for a bit longer, but that will not work now. Before Ashin could take him up, he stopped. Since he had just got there, Theo said that he should meet his new friends as well. So, he strolled over to the feast desk, where the laughing nobles were grouped. All of their eyes stayed on the fool of Ragnar. Theo calmly took a jar of drink from the table. He strolled towards the noble, who was speaking his mouth about Remington's birth, and moved to fill his cup. Theo moved his hand on the drink jar, and fast broke that object on Blondie's head without pity. Remington and even the Mad Ashian were stunned by this quick shift of events. Blondie held his head in pain as blood marked his yellow hair. Theo stood over him, still clutching the bloody, crushed jar. The jerk dared to sit up and yell at Theo for shaming him in front of everyone. Before he could speak his mouth, with a list of the usual proud, noble talk, Theo gave a strike that snapped the jerk's mouth. Theos' simple strategy had finally begun as his eyes turned dark and wild. He said that he was just giving Blondie a small hello only to get a painful answer back. The other nobles halted in their tracks, scared and lost by what was occurring. Meanwhile, Theos' mission progress was beginning to go up. Remington had spent 2 weeks of practice with the young master, and he understood the man to not be a hot-headed thug. He thought that Theo might be doing this for his sake. As Blondie kept leaking on the palace floor, Theo said that this was his style of hello greeting. He walked over Blondie's limb and placed the noble's weak frame on top of a stand while slowly giving weight. Since he gave his hellos already, it is time to say goodbyes now. Blondie loudly yelled for him to stay and stop what he was about to do. To no use, Theo crushed the jerk's limb and totally broke Blondie's frames. The nobles who were speaking their mouths freely just a few minutes ago were frozen and silent at the mean show of justice. That small breaking frame act raised Theos' mission progress to 58%. Blondie passed out from fear and pain, his spit marking the palace rugs. As Theo casually tossed the breathless frame aside like the sheer waste it truly represented, he questioned the frozen assembly if anyone else desired to offer a greeting. His daunting deeds instantly pushed the mission advancement all the way to 66%. Abruptly, skilled warriors that had been lurking within the deep darkness made their sudden arrival and hemmed Theo in from every single direction. They unsheathed their steel and centered entirely on stopping the danger at hand. For sharp edges trapped Theo, locking him firmly in his spot. The guards wanted revenge for the heavy crime of harming their young lord. They claimed that the penalty for such foul conduct must be immediate execution. Theo grinned widely as his strategy simply continued to improve. He questioned the guards, "Who is the person he just battered?" They replied that Blondie was the third young lord of the Hanavi house, young Master Ian Hanavi. Theo was entertained by their certain reply. So Theo questioned the guards what the issue would be if he beat up their young lord. With a profound sense of ego held in his tone, can they truly hold the weight for risking Kyle Ragnar's bloodline? The guards sensed their hold on their weapons falter upon hearing Theos' warning. Their fury, for seeing their young lord broken, was swapped by the natural dread they held for the Ragnar house. In addition, the heavy pressure the young man was throwing out was choking them. This was not the fool of Ragnar that they understood and regularly mocked. Now that they are considering it, Theo also possesses the right of inheritance to the seat as a direct kin of Ragnar. On top of that, Ragnar is the king of the north, the ruler who commands over the 6 frost clans. To announce death to the kin of the Drake is not something that any rational soul should do. It is a crime for which the ruin of an entire small frost clan would not even be thought unfair. That safety and status have not been used for Theo for such a long duration as a failing heir that most people overlook it. But that will not suffice anymore. All 4 guards understood that they had made a massive error, and they required to offer regrets. But Theo had already given the strike command to a hidden shadow dwelling close by. The rapid flash of a sharp blade struck everyone with its blinding pace. The next thing visible, 4 detached heads were already soaring in the air, guard blood marking the palace rugs. Theo was as still as the heart of a gale as the blood of his enemies swirled around him. The hidden presence he told to kill the guards steadily hit the floor full of poise. It was none other than his teacher, Evelyn Naravel herself, with more fluid leaking all over the room. Theos' mission to shed the fool of Ragnar name had hit 70% success. Axion had no choice but to observe as his party shifted into Theos' show of power and control. Evelyn viewed her pupil and questioned when he realized that she was following him. Well, it was certain really. He does not truly know why she tracked him all the way to Camellia Palace. But thanks to her, Theo will be able to flip the situation on these idiots without stress. They seemingly stayed for Theos' next move. The night before the party, Commander Julius gave Evelyn a hidden talk. He came to pester her about not taking in any more pupils, yet steadily coaching her new learner daily. Evelyn must have grown used to this giant entering her rooms, as she did not even want to host his antics. Recently, Julius' only comfort in life has been pestering his old friend. That includes taking her costly drink stash for his own fun. Tonight, Commander Julius truly desired to hear just what Evelyn viewed in the boy. She understood that grabbing the flask away from the giant's palm was impossible. Now, Evelyn replied that Theo was simply past hopes. Noting his stance about carving his skill and gift, he is truly among the top ones she has ever coached. Noting that even Axion moved through her lessons, that is a brave claim. Evelyn did not soften her words. Noting Theos' ceiling, she could surely say that he was past that of even young Lord Axion. Well, Julius always valued her vision for gifts. She had 2, while he only had 1 after all. Julius thought that a person cannot shift so greatly in a day. So, the most logical reason for Theos' situation was that the boy masked his power all this duration for some cause. Truly, it was strange to think that someone would do that for such a long span only to start suddenly revealing it now. As a coach, Evelyn thinks that being hurried in one's pace makes one likely to stumble and hit the ground. But what she viewed in Theo was unique. It appeared like he was being chased by something ghost-like. Julius finished the flask of drink and noted that the Axion child truly was worth the worry. He was also the one who hinted that Evelyn should just track the boy to be cautious. Commander Julius feels like something will occur at the party. It might be distinct from what Evelyn is anxious about, but something will surely occur. Being a Ragnar himself, he understood from direct knowledge that when wolf pups who are starving for blood meat, the leader placed a suit on the table and pushed Evelyn to try to coax Theo to join his troop once more. Not only the boy, but Julius also desired Evelyn back in the white-plated Drake unit. He declined to quit on Evelyn. He does not want her to go away just because she cannot ride a Drake anymore. She must come back and take duty for what she started. Julius left Evelyn's rooms, thanking her for the tasty drink. She lost a costly flask, but she might have just found her goal again. Back to the current time, inside the Camellia Palace, Evelyn started tying the events together. She thought that Theo must have seen her tracking from the rear and built this event on purpose. Perhaps he joined the Scaled Dragon Society, seeking this path in the first place. Her fears did not need to start with. She thought at what second did he see her shadow on the way to the palace. Theo actually felt his teacher quietly tracking him the second he stepped in the coach. With his Drake core, he can release his 4 sense of his area, effectively acting as a 6th sense. Regardless, what is vital now is that the shift has been made for his payback. Theo shifted to Evelyn and noted that most aristocrats in the party room have shown clear scorn to a thrown heir of the Ragnar house. He questioned what the penalty for such a foul act is. The trapped nobles almost collapsed on the floor. They understood exactly what the penalty was. Evelyn, ever a fan of the statutes, claimed that based on clan codes, instant killing of the trap parties is allowed. Theo grinned and he built a stage. Evelyn perfectly closed it out, acting like a kind soul. Theo claimed that the culprits are just children, who have not even been through their power event yet. He would be happy with just taking one limb from each sinner to think the crime cleared. Evelyn acted fast. She was a non-stop cutting tool aimed at the young, fearful nobles of the Scaled Dragon Society. The second boy of the Byron house tried to shift out of the path, only to get his right limb removed. The first boy of the red and white fighter group yelled in pain as his blood leaked from his end. The small limb of the fourth girl of the series' trade house was not left alone. The third boy of the Clark house tried to flee, but beating Evelyn was nearly impossible. When the first girl of the Howard house got turned into a one-armed ruin, Theos' mission had hit 79% success. One of the weak nobles moved towards Axion, or Axe for those near to him, to cry for aid. Axe just mirrored his sibling's words. He cannot step in, as this was just another style of hello. The moving noble saw a flash of steel in his side, and then his limb was cut smoothly, his blood almost marking Axion's garments. As the first boy of the parent house shook and rolled in pain, Axe viewed his old teacher. Evelyn calmly met his look and bowed. Evelyn saluted with her steel. Axion viewed the bloody party room and noted that Evelyn only focused on the ones who made clear notes about the line. Theo made it so that even as a fellow heir, Axion would not have the power to halt the killing. It only took Evelyn a few minutes to remove the right limbs of 14 souls under Theos' commands. As for their state, they can still take their limb to a healer right away and get them fixed, but their paths as fighters will be a different case. Everything went just as planned. Axion was more curious in how Theo got both Remington and Evelyn to his side. Theo Ragnar, the fool of the Rose Palace, had turned into something scary. The madman and Axion were happy. He truly desired to break this sibling under his boot. Theo called Evelyn and Remington to leave the area. They slowly made their path out of the palace, with the scared looks of the remaining nobles locked on Theo. The siblings viewed one another's eyes. They did not require to speak a word, but before they left, Theo grabbed Axion's limb. He held hard enough to fold his sibling's coat. After a fast moment, Theo let go and waved by, telling Axion that he had a lot of fun in this bloody party. The last guide mission to shed the fool of Ragnar name was finally done. Axion was steaming. He wanted to make a move right then and there, but he understood it would not be smart. The madman leaked his fury by breaking out of his own house and yelling Theos' name at the top of his lungs. With all the guide missions done, no one would dare to call Theo the fool of the house. The guide is done, but his real payback is only getting started. His prize for truly shifting his public image was a skill potion, a drink that instantly lifts one's rank by 5 if the soul is below rank 30. News of the blood reached the ears of other houses fast. Anyone would be stunned to hear that Axion's grand-scale dragon society was torn apart, truly and figuratively. As for Theo, he was on a very happy path after showing off to those nobles. His team took him to a bar in joy of his loud and bloody high society start. Everyone of his group was there. Even Evelyn stopped by to get some food. He thought how the Scaled Dragon Society was feeling after being beaten by a man they loved to call a fool. Inside the Camellia Palace, Emil Ragnar is in shock after finding that not only did they give the boy reason for his axe, but he also cut off everyone's limbs in front of Axion. Axion says yes, which makes her feel annoyed since it makes no sense to her, and she thinks of telling Axion before not to take things so light. She is let down to hear that they did not just try forcing him into yielding, but have given our boy total power to go wild. Axion tries to shield himself and tells her that once Theo gets fame, it will be hard to take the Rose Palace, telling her not to fret. However, she tells him to think on his axe and does not agree to hear him anymore. She shows his errors, which almost caused their big strategy to get ruined. Axion decides to hear her and leaves. Emil thinks who Axion acts like to be so rude. Ed Trovan says that Axion looks like her when she was small. She is not in the mood to play. So he says sorry and tells her that the event might not be worth fretting about so much. He says that the Rose Palace has been a part of the househead's home, so it is very hard to get its control. Even though it has been out of the househead's care, since it is a spot where trash stays, it still has the backing of the househead himself. He tells the strategy that all they required was reason, and luckily, since our boy Theo has made mess at the scale of the Dragon Society party. He is slowly becoming the face of the Rose Palace. By using the event as reason, they can crush the boy through lost steps. Immel is left quiet after hearing this, and thinks that the cause she was scared of Theo becoming harder was that she feared his power and reach would grow over time if the house head focused more on the Rose Palace. However, by using Theo, who is slowly becoming harder, she sees the Camellia Palace can crush him through lost steps, and the Rose Palace will have no other choice but to bend down in front of the Trovans. She thinks the strategy might actually work, and asks Ed how long it is going to take to get ready. The man tells her that all steps are already done, and tomorrow start when she gets up. She will hear some great news. He aids her and tells Immel that she can enjoy a long wash and sleep well for the night, while saying that he has made a scented candle for her from the Southacron Fire land. Immel decides to lean on her big sibling and shows her thanks. Meanwhile, inside a bar, Remington says how stunned he was and says he did not know Theo cared so much for him. Our boy does not understand what he is saying and finds it funny to see him act wild after drinking just fruit juice. Remington says that despite taking slights aimed at himself, Theo did not wait for even a second and acted for his friend. As soon as Remington started getting mocked, he feels ashamed and regrets not doing anything. Remington looks at the boy and feels stunned that Theo has been taking the times when everyone viewed him as a bad, failing child. But he still ended up not quitting and becoming harder, even against foes whom he does not have a small hope of beating. He showed strong heart to win his fight against the Camellia Palace, which no one fights. Remington sees that Theo has the heart to use his steel without any weight, and Theo did all that just for him. Theo's friend starts to get sad, and he sees Remington has greatly failed the situation. The man gets up and tells our boy that despite the commands of his house, he wants to track a different path, and says that he wants to track Theo. The people seeing both of them start yelling and call the boy and his friend great. Theo tries to fix the error, but Evelyn tells him in his head to just let his friend be. He sees her, and she says that it is not a bad error, and that everyone likely wants to get along with our boy. After hearing this, he starts to smile, but sees that he is nothing unique, since all of his powers are thanks to the status screen. He looks at his own stats and sees that whatever he has won is thanks to the status screen, while thinking that at first he thought it was a part of his own grief. However, seeing how deep and how real this is, he sees the status screen is something else. He gets a strange sense of memory, but decides not to care about it since it is aiding him grow. After the Scaled Dragon Society event done, the boy sees that his rank has grown. Whenever a rank up happens, the system gives him points that can be used to lift his stats. Theo sees he can lift his skills however he wants and feels fearful of the bright path. Evelyn sees his dark smile and gets worried about the soul of her pupil.
And that's a wrap for today's recap, but trust me, there's so much more to come. The next chapters are packed with even more twists, and I can't wait to dive into them with you. Comment below if you want part 2. Your thoughts mean everything, and we'll make it happen together. If you're enjoying the journey, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated. We're pouring our heart into every video, improving day by day to give you the best experience. Your support really helps, and a like makes sure this video reaches more people. Let's grow this community together. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.